I've dredged up a couple oldies from back in the working day, and that's in the time where I would put the word diatribe or rant or something like that at the top of most of what I was writing. And this first one is called Lament, because I wasn't too pleased with the company's response to anything negative that happened financially. Their first response would be to attack the workplace, the workforce. They would thin the herd, chase people out the door as soon as the nickel price went down, or market share problems or something like that. And so I reacted. This never went to a billboard anywhere, and so this is the first that it's really been out in the open air. The world's nickel price is in a tailspin. A signal to Inco, there's bad guys within. No cash to develop, Voisey's Bay can't go forth, so let's start a witch hunt right here, Salem North. We'll start with the lifers, tried, proven, and proud. We're sure of huge gains if they're beaten and cowed. Yes, those with long service years under their belt do best if they're pressured or transferred or dealt. And what of the skilled ones where projects progress? They're first out the door. We'll do more with less. Preach safety. For miscreants, bring on the whips. What surer response when your market share slips? But let that pound price slip to 184. Those neat safety vests aren't supplied anymore. You have to buy them. New edicts greet every financial condition. For brain power, we're champs of the flyweight division. Fresh memos spring forth to greet all our losses, accompanied by solemn, slow nods from all bosses. These schemes have some strange and far-reaching effects. Like Sherry, our bond ratings now, XXX. Our share price today, not half of its summit, is $30 less than start of its plummet. But think of the changes we've managed to bring. The workforce depleted, dejected, reeling. Now skeleton-staffed, we'll stumble along, convincing ourselves we've done nothing wrong. Now, on the matter of safety, their first response there was not quite to fire the guy, but they would really go over the whole situation with a fine-tooth comb and see if he broke any possible procedural regulation, to see if he could be blamed in some way for what happened. After all, they had fail-safed every possible activity that they had, so that if you got hurt, well, you must have done something to deserve that. And we will make sure that you are reminded of that in some way or another. There will be a punishment to follow. Well, it so happened toward the end of my sojourn in Thompson, I was walking down the drift with two assistants that day, and we had to walk because we weren't allowed to ride. As surveyors, we weren't allowed to ride on any vehicles going anywhere, because some of our tools were not hand tools. If you had nothing but hand tools, you could get a ride. But we used our eye in one of those instruments or tools, so therefore it might not be called a hand tool, and that didn't qualify us for riding, so we get to walk. And it would be miles at a time that we'd have to hike underground to get to the work area. So this one morning, I was dashing, walking very speedily along the drift. One fellow was on the walkway beside the rails. Another fellow was ahead of me between the rails, and in order to keep in conversational contact with these guys, I was walking very close behind the fellow between the rails. And being an ore carrier, ore carriers use that drift, And some of those cars would be overloaded. Sometimes because of the jiggling and vibrating and that, chunks would roll off the top of the cars. And at the last moment, as I was fairly close behind this other fellow, I saw a chunk was in my way and I couldn't step around it. So I did my best to step over it, but I got Achilles damage in that left ankle, and my toe just caught the top of that chunk, and I arced forward and down, and I was on my face instantaneously. No stutter step at all. My toe was hung up at the top of that chunk, and my face went flying down, and I hit the rail equally between my forehead and my cheek. I left a fair acreage of skin on that rail as a result, and it rattled my eyeball enough that it was instantaneously bloodshot. Well, the other guys stopped and inspected what was left of my face. I didn't hit my nose, didn't break it, and they said, "You better get up to the office, you know, you don't need to be down here looking like that." And of course, I got up to the office, and the other guys went on and did the work. And they didn't want me hanging around the office, all that ugliness in one place, so they sent me home, and they organized a response team to get down there and investigate what happened. And they quizzed me. They said, "What did you trip on? How big was it?" I said, "Well, the chunk was to the left between the two rails." And I said, "It's bigger than a teapot, and it wouldn't be any bigger than a football. So it's about that for size." And where was it? I said it was between 200 and 300 feet short of the main lunchroom on 3600 track drift. So they went down and they looked for it. And they walked past it 3 times before they found it. And at that point they realized, well, if he could describe the size of it, the position of it, and where it was in the drift that well, he must have been paying fairly close attention to where he was and what was going on. We can't really fault him for being negligent in this matter, so they decided they really didn't have to fire me for this. So, and while I was, and of course I was sent home, and I thought I'd better fill out my employee states part of the reports that will be written here, because they have that always as part of the paperwork that follows an incident, an impact of any sorts. And they expect that the employee states part of it will be excuse making or bit of a fib or something like that. So I thought I will contribute to that. So this was the employee states portion that I submitted the next day. I said, "For safety, we're numero uno. Inco hearts are in the right place. No finer mine company you know when a fellow falls flat on his face." The response team was right on the ball when they learned there had been an impact. They rushed past the guy did the fall and worriedly inspected their track. The weapon that struck their poor rail bled only the merest trickle and emerged quite hardy in hail due to higher content of nickel. In other words, my mind was on the job. Thank you. Track repair took less than 4 shifts as earnest crews worked round the clock. Then ore traffic resumed in that drift. Yes, this is the part that's a crock.